Hello everybody, in this video we are going to take the wall tile which we created last time. We're gonna edit it to add these edges. We're gonna create a top and a left side and a right side and the corners too. I hope this video is helpful to you. If it is, you might be interested in having a look at the entire course, which you can find on Skillshare and on Udemy. Link in the description. So open your file from last time. The first thing we're going to do is we are going to remove the rough sketch layer, and we are also going to merge the shading layer and the base color layer. Remember, it's a bit risky to merge layers because you lose a lot of work, so sometimes you want to save a backup of your files so that in case you do something stupid, like all of us sometimes do, even me, or should I say especially me, then anyway you still have a backup. We are gonna start by making the top tile. So first of all, let's duplicate this middle tile. I'm gonna right click and press duplicate. Rename the tile and hide and lock the central tile. Make sure that you have the right brush selected. Switch to eraser mode and erase the top of the tile. In fact, I'm gonna keep the top flat and then I'm gonna draw a thick layer of grass on top of it. Don't forget that we still want the top tile to be seamless, but only from left to right. For that we can also use the wraparound mode. So as I draw, I do have a general idea of what I want to do in my mind, but I don't really have any specific image that I'm after. What I'm doing a lot is I'm trying out a lot of things. I'm experimenting with a flat roof, a flat top, or a very bumpy top, or whatever, and I'm just using Ctrl Z a lot, and I'm just experimenting around with it. A lot of tutorials, you just see the tutors doing exactly the right thing the first time, which is good on the one hand because then the tutorials are much more focused. But on the other hand, it also is probably a bit misleading because also these tutors are experimenting around and playing around with it and having fun with it before they know what they want to draw. And that's the part that they edit out of their videos. So my advice to you, don't expect to get it right the first time. Just experiment around with it. You don't want to be too hard on yourself and you don't want to be a perfectionist either, because at one point you do want to move on. So if you're not really 100% satisfied, that's okay, just move on, and then it will kind of grow on you and it will evolve naturally. So do play around with it, do experiment, but don't get stuck on one piece too long. Next, let's move on with the shading and highlighting of the grass. I've already created a palette with the usual screen multiply method. When shading and highlighting, try to remember your basic forms and your basic lighting. Experiment around a bit with it and have fun with it. It's not always as easy as it looks. Next, we want to create the top left corner. So we're going to duplicate the top tile and then we're going to rename the layer. And then we're going to erase the appropriate parts. And let's do the same for the top right. Duplicate the layer. Erase the appropriate parts. You could also add a little bit of extra shading just below the grass line. That will give it a little bit more volume. And finally, as you probably guessed, we're also going to create the left and right tiles. So we're going to duplicate the center tile again and then rename the layer and then erase the appropriate part and make any kind of adjustments. The thing to remember is that we also want the tiles to be seamless. So we still want it to be seamless, but when it comes to the left and the right tiles, we want it to be seamless from top to bottom. Or I can create a temporary layer, which is where I'm going to draw a line using the line tool. I'm going to mark out where the edge of my rock face ends. And this way I can more easily ensure that it's seamless. So that we can see more easily, I'm going to lower the opacity of this temporary layer. So for that, we also use a wraparound tool to make sure that it's still seamless from top to bottom. And for the right side, we do the same. Create a temporary helper layer. Mark out where the top right tile ends. And erase the appropriate parts. Finally, we want to export all of these layers as individual PNG files. To do that, we go to Tools, Script, Export Layers. That will export each of them into a different file. Select the file which we currently have open up here, and then select the output directory. Make sure the output is to PNG. And I just want to call your attention to this DPI. That's the resolution. That's dots per inch. So I'm going to leave this as is, but if I was super conscientious, I would set this to 96. In fact, it doesn't really matter, but it could cause some confusion in the future when we import it to Inkscape. Okay, so now we've exported all of these tiles into this directory and you can see them over here. There we have the files, but when we open it in my viewer, it looks all blurry. Why did that happen? Don't worry, it's just a problem with my viewer. It's not a problem with the picture itself, so I can easily fix it by changing these settings. I just show you this to let you know that most viewers are gonna do some kind of smoothing or blurring. So you might have to change some settings in your viewer or perhaps pick another viewer. But anyway, that doesn't really concern us directly because we are going to open it in Inkscape, and that's what we're gonna do in the next lesson. But for now, I want you to do your homework, which is to take the tile you drew in the last lesson and convert it into these 6 tiles. The top tile, the left and the right, and of course the top left corner and the top right corner.